Hey folks, this is Manuel from Steadybit. So when you're using Steadybit, you're obviously benefiting from the automatic discovery of your system to make it really easy to create chaos engineering experiments to improve the reliability. You're also benefiting from the Explorer capability of Steadybit, helping you to visualize your system and understanding it, as well as from Steadybit's advice to detect reliability gaps in your infrastructure, suggest experiments to test your reliability improvements, and run them easily. And of course, whenever you're thinking about experiments and you're designing one, you can benefit from the huge variety of chaos engineering attacks, checks, load test integrations, and integrations into observability that Steadybit has. And also when running it, you can easily see everything at a glance in the live run view. But the secret for all of this is actually that it's coming from Steadybit's open source extensions, which allow you to integrate whatever technology you're thinking of. And the most important part, given that they're open source, you can even create your own extension by using one of the extension kits that we offer to you as well. This video is a series of videos covering each of the different extension kits, allowing you to understand how you can use them to make it a perfect fit for your infrastructure and customize Steadybit to roll out chaos engineering successfully. So in this video, we want to focus on AdviceKit. AdviceKit makes it pretty easy to roll out chaos engineering across your organization by checking your infrastructure against best practices and suggest experiments to check the actual behavior. Now, AdviceKit can be used to develop your own extension, registering it with the Steadybit agent and picking up all your advice in the Steadybit platform with the same look and feel as all the other advice provided by us. To check it out, you can use the extension scaffold public template repository. You can open it up in a code space to run it immediately and check out the different endpoints, or you just fork it to create your own extension. Once you have opened it up in a code space, you can check out the readme.hdp, which explains each and every different extension kits in more detail. And also, having the running extension already in here, you can directly check out the endpoints provided by the extension and understand this right away. Now let's open up this extension endpoint to understand it in more detail. This endpoint provides different capabilities, and one of it is actually advice provided by AdviceKit. Whenever I'm opening up this specific advice, I can see the full details. And of course, given our example that we have in place, it's all about robots and whether a robot needs maintenance. You can see each advice has a specific ID, and then it specifies what kind of assessment query should be used to define whether a given target is applicable for this advice. So for instance, for each of the robots coming from the extension scaffold, we can give advice and suggest whether this robot needs maintenance or not. But for all other target types, we have no clue about, and this way we don't want to make any statement about those. Once a target is applicable to an advice, we use the assessment query in the action needed phase to define whether this given target is in the action needed state. The action needed state is good to say that there is some infrastructure code changes needed, some changes in your deployment to fix some reliability gaps, and this should even be done before running an experiment, because you already can tell that this experiment will fail in the end. You can check out real-world examples like the zone outage, where we only want to test for zone outage when we know that the specific infrastructure is deployed across different availability zones. If that's not the case, we want to give instructions and motivations why it is needed to fix the deployment model. You can see in here, it's all about robots and maintenance. So we actually give some information about how to maintain a robot. Of course, just example content, and you will see that in action in a couple of seconds. Once the action needed state is passed, so basically the assessment query is not true anymore, we have the validation needed phase. Here you can basically suggest an experiment or an experiment template that should be executed, or have some text to describe what needs to be done to validate this specific advice. Last but not least, a specific robot goes into the implemented phase because it has actually followed all the advice, so everything is good. Now let's keep this in mind, the action needed state based on the maintenance attribute, the validation needed state for the experiment, and last but not least, the implemented phase. Now, when jumping into the Steadybit platform, where I've already deployed this extension, I can simply activate advice to get advice for the 3 robots that were discovered by the extension. Now you can see that the robots are in different states. Some of them are in the action needed state, so basically require some deployment changes to improve the reliability. One robot is actually in the validation needed state, And eventually, in a couple of seconds, we will also have one in the implemented state. Now, jumping into one of the two robots which requires action, I can open up the Terminator robot, and I see that this robot requires maintenance, and also see the information coming from the advice to suggest how you can actually give maintenance to this robot. And you can also see by jumping over to the attributes, the robot needs maintenance, which is why the advice is in the given state. Once a user has done the maintenance in here, we expect discovery to change this property to false. And this way, this advice jumps over into the next stage, which is validation needed. Now I can jump into the Bender robot where you can see the validation needed state. So this one has the robot needs maintenance set to false. And this way it allows you to create an experiment and run it to validate whether your fix is actually working as expected. Here we go, the experiment was executed successfully and I can now validate this advice. This way the robot turns into the implemented state. They can also see in here that Bender robot is now fully implementing our advice. Now, one little part which we haven't covered in this video is how to register your extension. That's something we will link in the description. So whenever you want to write your own custom advice, make sure to check out the example in the extension scaffold. Thanks for watching and take care.